All right. Sylvia. She loves this question. Are you weekly or daily? Okay, let's talk about that then.
Okay. Welcome. So glad you're with us. Even
I'm
if
Shane.
we're a little silly
That's
tonight.
right. We're gonna figure this out together.
Yep.
My name is Shane.
Sylvia. And we're here to share with you some of the things that we've been learning, growing in, discussing, experiencing in our house church community, and just how the gospel has grown in our lives. So
Yeah.
we're not the experts. We're not here to give life's answers, but just to share what we have come to know.
That's right.
Glad you
so
joined us.
we're glad you joined us here at this Facebook Live event. Remember, we're doing Facebook Live so that you will be able to engage with us. And as we're talking, if questions come up, if other ideas that you wanted to share, we'd love for you to post those. We have some staff in the back there that actually write them down and give them to us so we can try to interact together. And hopefully this is a good time. So if you are watching this and it's already been recorded, then feel free. You can still write down your questions and comments, and we try to reply to those and respond with those throughout the week. So thanks for joining us. Okay, so
Yes.
Tonight's topic, here it is. Big topic. Are you daily or weekly? Right? So what does
Didn't
that
really
what does that
say what
mean?
that meant.
No, we didn't say what that meant at all. So did we draw you in, right? What I want to have us discuss, and some of the things that we're learning and growing in our spiritual community, is the idea of shifting from kind of a 1 day a week Christian to a 7-day a week Christian. When does your Christianity practice, what's the density, I guess you could say? What day of the week? I mean, let me just say this.
Go.
Here we go. So most Christians, and I think you mentioned this, when you want to define a Christian, it's someone who goes to church, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully they're nice. Like that would maybe be the second thing people would say. To define a Christian, they go to church, hopefully they're nice. And then now there's a whole bunch of other baggage that can be clamped onto that, but we won't go to that. But the idea that we want to talk about is being able to shift from, hey, this is my day that I'm a Christian, and I go to church there and meet with other Christians. We do stuff on that day, and then the rest of the day is my own. So I give God kind of a seventh, and then the rest of the week it's hit or miss. Mm-hmm. So we want to talk about, okay, how have we found shifting from just the 1 day a week to 7 days a week? What does that look like? What's that about? And
why does it matter?
Yeah. And one of the things we talked about, there may be some of you out there that are like, why would I want to do that? Right?
Yeah. So I know I have heard many people say, well, I kind of have I have my church face.
Sure. Yep.
Or, if church is just a group where, I have friends there and then they go and leave me alone the rest of the week, good deal.
Yeah.
So and sometimes that's because the community that you maybe are a part of at church may create a sense of burden almost, where it's like, well, I have to play this part for these people.
Right.
And so it's very burdensome. So
why would I
why
want to
would
do
you want
that?
to do that all week long?
Right. Yeah. Or maybe you have the idea that, okay, so can I take 1 day that's really concentrated with God and just kind of dilute it out across 7 days? Is that what you're talking about? And all of those we want to say no. I know that the things that we're going to say, you're going to be hearing through your lens. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to describe it in such a way that gives you a different picture of what we mean by living out this faith. Living out our faith, and rather than just doing it in 1 day, but finding a way to do it every day, and what that looks like, how to do it, and why to do it. So let's jump into, let's talk about real quick. So what does that look like? We have three things. We have three things that we can use, and these aren't the only things. that we can use to describe what it looks like to live that out. So what would it look like for you?
So the first thing that I thought of was increased authenticity. So if you have a day that you go to church and that's the day that you play your Christian part, then your life is, and then you go on and you do this part and you do that part, your life is going to be somewhat disjointed, and your thoughts are not going to be as coherent or all meshed together. So you'll have a very, this is how I do here, this is how I do here, and it's not a one face.
And most of us know that to do that is very draining. To have to put on a face, to have to be different for this group as opposed to that group.
Or to feel like you're faking it in
or
front
to feel like
of
you have
other people
exactly.
in order to be acceptable or accepted.
Yeah.
It's very draining.
Yeah. So our context, which may be a little different than yours, our context is from the beginning we valued authenticity. And authenticity means you can just be who you are and God is right there. Where you are right now is where you're supposed to be. God is going to continue to grow that. So if you're feeling horrible, you don't have to put on the happy smiley face. If your lifestyle is this way, you don't have to change your lifestyle to be a part of our community. And we find but being able to be that way authentically, not just one day a week, but across 7 days a week, is fantastic. Actually, it feels good. It's healthier emotionally, and it's healthier spiritually. Like, who are you trying to fake? Who are you trying to fool?
So you said it feels good. I'm going to say if you have been wearing a mask, it feels raw and uncomfortable to take it off.
All right, fine.
But in the long run,
it
is healthier and it is a more comfortable place to be. Once you rip the mask off.
Or take it off slowly if you don't like to rip. If you're not one of those real quick.
Yeah.
So the second thing that we wanted, first one was increased authenticity. That's what it looks like to move from 1 day to 7 days. The second one is increased intentionality. And what I love about that is why that is important is because in doing that, in moving from 1 day to 7 days, it gives me the opportunity to be more intentional in my relationships, be more intentional in the things that I'm saying, and I'm intentionally striving to collaborate with God during the day. And I love that word when it comes to my relationship with God, is I believe it's a collaboration. It's not I'm trying to appease God. I'm not trying to prove myself to God. I'm not trying to do things for God. I'm collaborating with God, and that intentionality means that I pay. I try to stop throughout the day and just notice Him. I'm aware of where He's at. The benefit in that is I can come to the end of the day, or I can come to the end of the week, and I'm more likely to be able to see where I've been able to collaborate with God and see moments where He was able to kind of shine through during my week. And that gives an incredible freshness to my relationship with God, because it's not just I'm going through the motions, but when I can see where God is involved in my life, and where I can see where we're working together to grow the kingdom and to benefit other people into whatever God is calling me to do and inviting me into, that makes for so much more of a fresh and real relationship with Him than a kind of a cardboard flavored version of I'm just going to have my devotions and say my prayers because that's what I'm supposed to do. Right. Then I'm going to go out and do my thing. And then once a week I'm going to come with other people and we're going to worship this cardboard cutout of God that I really wasn't paying attention to during the week, so I really don't know how dynamic and multidimensional He is.
And when you're talking about intentionality, you're talking about it in terms of relationship.
Yeah.
It's not I'm going to intentionally check off each box.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's
That's
a
true.
different approach.
Yeah, it's not. I'm intentionally trying to do things. I am, to go from 1 day to 7. Is I'm intentionally trying to engage with God and see
thinking
Him, notice Him.
relationally.
Yeah.
What is, and it brings growth that you may not have otherwise been able to experience, but also it makes, like you said, the cardboard God versus the alive God. If you're interacting with someone on a daily basis, you're going to get to know them better, and you're going to see who they are at a different level.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so third one, last one. What's it look like?
increase community. So, by moving it from 1 day to 7, because if you have been, as I was at one time, you show up for church 1 day a week for a couple hours, and then you're done.
Yeah.
The air quotes.
I love those.
Then you're done. But if you change that to a 7-day, not that we're meeting every day, but that that community is constantly in your mind and interacting in some way or another, but it doesn't mean you have every meal together or you live in a commune.
And we'll talk about how what that looks like for us, how that plays out. But that increased community, and why is that important?
Well, each one of us need connection. I mean, we strive to have community. We want to have people that we understand, that understand us, and that we just feel a deep sense of connection to. So having that is just a basic human need.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not something that happens kind of suddenly without investing into it. Like if suddenly I have a crisis, but I haven't invested in community and I haven't built that community,
it's not the time you're going to be able to effectively do
you're
it.
not going to have people that are going to know and reach into your life and help you when you need it. And so therefore you feel hurt. And, we have friends who the church wasn't there for me. Well, did you build community before the crisis? Was there community before that? And why would you expect it suddenly in a time of need if it wasn't there in a time of plenty? I think we have unrealistic expectations in that sense, because community is built on relationships. Relationships take time. But the benefit in that is, like you said, that connection. And that is an amazing connection when it is a healthy connection. We're not talking about a community that is about judgment, a community that is about making sure you're on the straight and narrow. We're talking about community in our context is shared life. And we'll show you that, talk about that in just a second. So those are the three things, what it looks like for us. So it looks from moving from 1 to 7, looks like increased authenticity, increased intentionality, and increased community. So any questions? Raise your hand.
You see anybody?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No questions. Okay, so we'll move on.
Yeah.
If you got questions, put them in the comments at the bottom of the screen. So let's talk about how we are trying to move from 1 to 7.
Yeah. So I think we came on decentralization is the word.
Decentralization, decreased focus.
Decentralization, decreased focused on that one big program. And, in a typical church setting, that one program, or maybe they repeat it 2 or 3 times even, depending on the size of the congregation, is the focus. I mean, if you're going to miss everything else, at least you're going to come to that.
Come to the worship
service.
service.
That's going to be where you're going to get what you need to go out.
Yep.
And so we've kind of knocked the legs out from under that. And see it more as a gathering. We call it a gathering. We don't call it a church service. It's not a program. It does flow through a fairly predictable format, but not always.
And that format can be negotiable, could always be willing to change. I think you used the word organic.
Yes.
That it tends we try to make it flow a little more organically.
Yeah. So it's not, and it's the time when we come together and we say, how was the week? How did it go? What's going on? How did you see God better? Try to share with each other how we experienced the week in order to give that bigger picture, because what I see is different than what you see.
Yeah.
It's different what other people see. And so when we can share together what we have experienced, we see a bigger God. And, if our week was dry, hopefully someone else has something else to share so that we can learn and grow together. So it's more of a culmination rather than...
It's not the main focus. So what you mentioned earlier was the way it's projected, or the way it's presented. Maybe this isn't reality, but the way it's presented is, come get fed so that you can go out. And when you flip that on its head and you make the central gathering less, it's not a central gathering, it's just a gathering, it's less important. It's still important, but it's less important. Instead of, hey, come and get fed so you can go out and bring back what you've gotten during the week, bring that to the meeting. So the meeting is not about where you're going to get fed. The meeting is where you come and actually give.
Yeah, and it just struck me that when it's looked at that way, then it's automatic that, everyone should be having the experience that they're coming in and being able to share, rather than, those 5 people are going to get up front and they're going to be in touch with God this week and tell me what they...
Yeah, what God told them that I need.
And so it's a much broader, it almost automatically says that, the priesthood of all believers, that everybody has something that they can bring to this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And in my mind, that's a healthier picture of how you look at it. So we kind of decentralize or decrease the focus on the gathering. The second thing that we do is we spend time together. And we do this we try to do this in a way that's natural, that maybe we've mentioned this before. We look to connect in the natural rhythms of life. We celebrate together. So if there's birthday parties, we do birthday parties together. We do family dinners together. In our spiritual community, there's at least 2 nights that I know of that we do family dinners together. And those aren't necessarily the big family gatherings. Sometimes they're just smaller gatherings. So we spend time together during the week, whether it's be celebrating, whether it be family dinner, whether it be calling each other or putting it up like our Facebook community page. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to Costco. Anyone want to go with me? I got a Costco card. You can come and you don't have to own it. We kind of share that, so we have kind of a communal sense with some of our things, or our Me to We page. We try to use social media so that that's a way to connect. And we have a page called Me to We, where if we have something extra, we post it on there and say, hey, I have this, or hey, I need a chainsaw this week, but I don't really think I need to go and buy one if you already have one. So we're looking for ways to connect during the week, and sometimes that's spontaneous. Hey, who's going to the coffee shop, or who's going to the pub, or who's going out to eat? Oh, I'll go, and some people go and some don't. So spending time together isn't like we have to have a church night during the week where we all get together. Because our lives, it's too hard. That's not a natural rhythm in our lives. We're too busy to do that. So we look for ways that we can connect with each other, and not always a big group, but
without adding more to do.
Yep, without adding more things. What are the things we're naturally already doing that we can do together? So that was number 2. So number 3, talk about kingdom values more. Talk about that one.
Okay, so kingdom values is more about the connections, the relationships. What is it that God wants from us but to do justly, love mercy, walk humbly? It's things where you're interrelating with other people. So those are kingdom values versus theological beliefs.
Or doctrines,
doctrines, Yep. So it's not that we're talking about doctrinal beliefs It's that we're talking about interacting with other people and learning to love other people, learning to be relate better, and
and in bringing in the gospel more often.
Yeah.
And when we want to talk about the good news about God, rarely do we talk about it in a sense, hey, let me tell you about what you need to know. It's more like, we've been talking about this. This is how my life is going, and I'm trying to figure out the grace and the gospel here. Where does that play out? Can you help me? That's the kind of conversations that we're trying to be more prevalent in our during our day and during our week. Sometimes on Facebook, like I said, but just finding ways to talk about these kingdom things. We talk about a lot of things during the week, but how much of it do we engage in dialogue and discussion and that mental activity of figuring out, okay, the kingdom has values too. We have American values and we have things in our lives the American way we're supposed to be living out, but what about God's kingdom and his gospel and his grace? And making that brings it to the forefront and brings it from just one day a week
or
to
even,
throughout the week.
A lot of times, I guess I would have in the past when thinking about kingdom, I would have been thinking heaven, far, far away.
Sure.
Long time from now.
Yep.
Versus when you start thinking about kingdom values here and now, it's even more than just taking it from 1 day to 7 days. It's taking it from some point in the far future to right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just noticed, Gina, that you made the post of our relationships heal us. And, that's the benefit in community. And that's what I think what Jesus was asking people to do when he was saying, hey, come and be my disciples, come and be my family. You are representative of my body here on earth. We're all together. And that's how healing happens, hopefully. If you're
also where
we can't deny that. We can't deny that there's pain, that there's been some dysfunction and some brokenness. So we can only speak to our context, and I'm sorry if your context has been different. What I would say to you is find a new context. Because if you have not found healing and growth, if you have not found love and acceptance, then you are not in the presence of Jesus. I'm sorry, because that's where everywhere he went, that was in his presence. And so find a context that gives you that. So, okay, sorry. So that was the third thing. The fourth thing. So we talked about how are we doing this? We're decentralizing or defocusing attention on the main gathering, if you were to say. We are spending time together during the week in relationship. We are finding ways to discuss and engage the kingdom values and the kingdom ideas. And not in a conquering sort of way. I want to make sure, because sometimes people think when they think kingdom, they think of going out and conquering. I'm going to take the city for Jesus, or this imperialistic idea. That's not the idea. That's not what God was about. So we talk about it. The fourth one is disciple others and be discipled.
Which kind of goes along with all of those, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of all of those.
Yep.
It's a part of the, every time we get together, I mean, there are some times that are more intentionally discipleship oriented than others, but it's never out of place. Bonnie says it's messy. It's all that, Bonnie.
Yes. And discipleship, we're not talking necessarily a Bible study. We're talking, when we talk about discipling, we're talking about, hey, this is what's going on in my life, and this is what I'm struggling with right now. Remind me of the grace and the good news that's there.
Yeah.
And trying to, like, it's not about soliciting advice. This is reminding me of what I may already know about the good news of who God says he is and who he says I am. That's discipling. You know, help me to move from, again, unbelief
to
about who God is to belief in in the reality of who He is. And so what we try to move from 1 to 7 is this idea that I want to disciple someone else. I want to listen to them. I want to hear them, and I want to, if I'm given opportunity, and not just the opportunity presents itself, but actually I'm invited into a relationship that allows me to let me speak into that and let me remind you who God is and who you are. So I want to disciple other people, but I also want to be discipled. You know, this is not a hierarchical thing. Even though there are some of us who may have been further on the journey than others, this isn't, you know, a wise guru kind of a thing, and I have all these disciples underneath me, and I, you know, bestow all this wisdom on you, my children. This isn't that at all. This is you know, it's the Holy Spirit that's really discipling. It's God working through and in us that's discipling, and it goes both ways. It's really cool. It's really messy. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable.
And it's something that's not always. I mean, we've been on this journey for 3 years now, and there are still times where it's like, we've been talking for how long now? How about, where does the gospel fit into this? You know, so it's not that it's not an automatic, oh yeah, now I'm going to talk gospel every day.
No.
Like,
Not at all. No.
No, but that's where the intentionality comes in, where we go, hey, our goal is, as a group, to be discipled and to disciple. So since we're all on that same journey and all on that same have that same intention, then it makes it easier to say, pause.
Yeah.
Where does this all fit in? So.
And again, our context is about relationships between each other and with God, open, free, accepting, loving, but also we're going to push a little bit. We are not afraid in a loving way to push each other to think differently and to challenge growth sometimes. And we're trying to model it and live it as healthy as we can, as healthy as we find that Jesus did. In the context of Scripture that we know of. I mean, there's so much more, I'm sure, but that's at least what we can glean from. So, I don't know. So in the you have 13 seconds. No, really. In the time that we have, whatever time you take, that's how much time we have left. What's your so what?
Okay.
What's your so what? Who cares?
Kind of the first thing that we started on, that the wearing of masks is very burdensome.
Okay.
And even though taking them off can be uncomfortable, in the long run, it's less burdensome. And I'm choosing that I want the direction of my life to be toward the kingdom values. And so this is something that allows me to integrate my thoughts, myself, into a more cohesive
and holistic. Yeah. So my so what, who cares, is I'm kind of a go big or go home kind of a guy. And in reading some of the early church and how they lived and the things they did, while I know I can't, that's a totally different context and time frame, I can't repeat that. But I still want to, in my context and in my timeline here, I still want to live with that that kind of adventure and that kind of bigness, where they were at one point, you know, everyone's praising God. Another point, you know, they're falling on their face. God, please protect us. And I mean, it's big and it's messy and it's scary and it's exciting and it's all over the place. But it's anything than mundane. Than just simply going through the motions. Than allowing my soul to die and hoping that I'm just preserved long enough that Jesus will come again. You know, I want to live a more free and exciting and, you know, engaged life with the God who is just as active today as he was in the stories that I read in Scripture.
So if it's not going to change your life, Why bother?
Why bother?
Why bother?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, hey, thanks for the time you spent with us. And if you have any questions, we don't have any more questions or comments, do we? Just looking real quick. No? Okay. If you have any that come up later, feel free to drop them in the comment section or post them on the Facebook page. If you have some ideas of some questions you'd like us to answer in an episode, again, all we're doing is trying to share what we're learning here. So if you have questions about our context and the things we're learning, we are not a source of, the experts. We can just speak to what's been going on with us. So thanks so much. You got
We'll see you
anything
next
left?
week.
Oh, okay.
Friday.
Yeah, next Friday, 7:00.
Bye.